Hello, welcome to Project One presentation. We are the India group. We consist of Brandalin Barnes, Tara Sparks, Garrett Anderson, Eric Wozniak, and Rick Grilliot. We learned a lot about India so far this semester. We're really excited to share what we've gathered so far. So when you're looking at the culture of India, you can gather a lot from the Hofstadter dimensions analysis. It really says a lot about their history, their culture, what they find important. And the highest dimension was power distance. There is a respect for the status, authority, and social hierarchy of the country and its citizens, and it really comes from the caste system, which they still use. And when it comes to individualism, they are not so individualistic, especially compared to America, because they are more concerned with the greater good. They're more concerned with teamwork. A lot of it comes from their religious nature. They believe in karma. Because of their Buddhist belief or Hindu belief, and some of it just comes from personal preference. Masculinity, they're really similar to America. Um, Again, a lot of it comes from their spirituality, and they in their history they've had a lot of gains and losses. There's been a lot of revolts and in government, religion, and politics, and so there's a lot of uncertainty that people in India have to deal with. Now, when it comes to their business strategy, how they negotiate, the buyer has a lot of leverage, and they appreciate friendly and respectful behavior, and they're always willing to compromise to achieve. But that comes at a cost. Sometimes compromises can be drawn out. You're told usually to expect and plan for delays, to and and the frustration that comes from that delays. But those in India really love bargaining, and they love the process of it. And it's important to note that while Indians come across as soft-spoken and polite, they may use unexpected techniques such as lying, mixed signals, and false demands. And that's not to say that all Indians do that, but it is important to note. Now, when it comes to their government, they have a federal form government, and it is similar to the British Parliament. The difference between America and India is that the central government has a lot more power than the states do. And there are two different groups, the Raya Sabhaya, which is the Council of States, and Lok Sabhaya, which is the House of the People. Now, unfortunately, the Indian government has known to be corrupt, and they accept monetary favors or tokens, which is not technically a bribe, but officials require such favors to accomplish certain tasks, and it is almost part of the culture. And again, I'll bring up that 80% of the country is Hindu and believes in Hinduism, which really affects not only the government but those in the country. Now, in current politics in India, the 2014 election is taking place right now. It is taking place from April 7th and will continue to May 12th. And the results are revealed May 16th. And the elections take so long because there are 815 million voters. Many of them live in rural areas that are difficult to get to, but they have a 70% voter turnout. There are a lot of people in the country that are excited to make a difference in their country and to vote. And as for the recent elections, what's been in the news is that there are rebel groups that still protest India's interdependence, as well as the hot topic of the exportation of beef, because cows are believed to house the spirits of gods in Hindu religion and are sacred. Again, going back to how the religion influences their government and politics. Now, to look at India's Economic Freedom Index, most recently they scored a 55.7 out of 100, which is actually the greatest score that they have ever received as a country, and has increased by 0.5% as of 2013. And the country received a mostly unfree rating, but is still increasing their score. And one of the factors of the Economic Freedom Index is the regulatory efficiency. There are a lot of regulations in India's business, and if you compare it to America, they have twice as many regulations. And they have a much higher tax rate. They have a 62.8% compared to America's 46.3%. And also the number of payments per year is a whopping 33 compared to the United States, which only has 11. Probably the hardest business regulations they have are their litigations, which are drawn out, can take up to 3 years longer than America, and court fees can be almost twice as much. It's much more difficult in India to fight legally. And most of the time businesses will try to come to a compromise outside of the legal system just because of how long and how difficult the process it can be. And more recently, India has opened their borders to trade, and it has agricultural tariffs which really protect a lot of the citizens. There's about 50% of India's citizens rely on farming and agricultural means to survive. And since 1990 to 2005, the GDP ratio has increased by 20%, which is one of the fastest economies growing in the world today. And India is really making a push to increase the number of incentives to encourage investments and international trade, which include cash grants, tax exemptions, property assistance, loan guarantees, exemptions from regulations, and target sectors. And in India's current economic conditions, the interest is slowly increasing, as where the GDP has fallen drastically over the past year in comparison to the previous ones. But with a decreased GDP, the unemployment rate is at a 5-year high, and it makes labor cheap and easily available. When you look at the exchange rate of Indian rupees to US dollars, in 2009 it was 47 to the dollar, and the past 5 years it has risen to 59.19. And if you look at the graph, it has slowly climbed over time. There are certain times where it has increased dramatically. Specifically September 2013, it hit an all-time high. And there is speculation, we believe, that this was caused through a money gap where interest rates did not really have a strong bond between demand, and because of the lag, it caused inflation rates. It could also be caused through other countries just having high inflation rates, and it reflects in the country. Other risks that businesses should be aware of is the amount of old technology that India still relies on. There's a huge difference between the wealthy and the poor still have outdated means. And India's government's always changing. It's not coming to its own. An example is India is still experiencing new government policies which make investments to the country of high risk. And India really understands the importance of agreements and trying to make friends in the economic world. They are part of the SAFTA, the ASEAN, the APTA, the Bismatek, and the PTA. And this is all in accordance to make economic friends and to really push their economic boundaries. They also have several free trade agreements with countries like Sri Lanka and Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, and again this goes along with them really opening up and trying to trade and be economically friendly. And we came up with 3 product ideas if we were going to market and sell something to India. Our first one would be electrical distribution. Now, it was quoted by Mr. Parekha that said, India's power sector is a leaking bucket, the holes deliberately crafted and the leaks carefully collected as economic rents by various stakeholders that control the system. The logical thing to do would be to fix the bucket. And later he suggested that the solution to fixing the bucket will be private investment and public-private partnerships. And that would be exactly what we would want to do with India's energy problem. We would be fixing the leaking bucket with nearly 2 million customers with a connected load of 400 gigawatts. Our next idea would be agricultural services. Now, there is problems with their infrastructure, productivity, diversion on farmland for non-agricultural purposes, poor irrigation, floods, crop failure. They have a lot of problems with their crops. And the agricultural service would loan machinery, import fertilizer. Fertilizer is actually their 4th biggest import into the country. Offer services where possible, give lessons, and sell basic tools. Our final idea would be a pharmaceutical company, and they would have an emphasis on contraceptive methods. Now, India's population is growing at 2%, and they have over 1.2 billion people in the world, in the country. That is the 2nd largest country in the world. Now, they don't have a lot of contraceptive means, so there is a simple surgery called a reversible inhibition of sperm under guidance. It will be able to be done by those who don't have much training and would also be reversible if needs. And it wouldn't be against any religious standpoint. There are already companies doing it like Sun Pharma and Lupin Limited. And that was our presentation. And I hope you learned something. We've had a lot of fun getting to know India more in depth. Thank you.